Hello and welcome to another edition of The Debate. I'm Kavitafway. A long-delayed U.S. Senate report exposes, quote, brutal torture techniques that the CIA used after the 9/11 attacks. The CIA director, however, has defended the use of torture, and the U.S. Justice Department says it has no plans to reopen criminal investigation into CIA torture techniques. American embassies have gone on heightened alert amid fears of a backlash about this report. And even before the report was out, the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry warned about the impact that it could have around the world. In this edition of The Debate, we'll discuss what is common knowledge that the U.S. did conduct torture, or what the U.S. calls harsh interrogation techniques. The question is, even though this supposedly happened under George W. Bush's watch, and even though Obama has pushed to distance the U.S. from it, is it still continuing? Are other countries complicit in cooperating with the U.S., such as the rendition programs?
The report is just now, as I speak, being released.
A damning report on torture by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. The report released by the Senate Intelligence Committee includes disturbing details about the CIA's brutal torture techniques, such as sleep deprivation, humiliation, confinement, as well as a notorious simulated drowning process known as waterboarding.
The report released today examines the CIA's secret overseas detention of at least 119 individuals and the use of coercive interrogation techniques, in some cases amounting to torture.
The report, the full version of which tops 6,000 pages, says the CIA tortured suspected al-Qaeda detainees in Guantanamo Bay prison in Cuba, as well as other secret overseas facilities after the September 11 attacks. It lists 54 countries, including more than 20 European states such as Poland, where the CIA agents tortured detainees. The Senate report says those torture techniques were far more brutal than CIA had said and far beyond its legal boundaries.
Without this report, the American people would not know what actually took place under the CIA's torture program. What took place, the torture program, was not in keeping with our country.
The torture techniques were carried out under ex-U.S. President George Bush's watch.
In the war on terror, intelligence is one of the most crucial tools for our defense. If a captured terrorist has information about a plot against our homeland, we need to know what he knows.
5 years on, the two-time president is still defiant.
Whatever the report says, if it diminishes their contributions to our country, it is way off base.
I'm releasing this report because...
But the spin put on the report is the results which CIA authorities claimed, and based on them, their justification about the torture techniques. The report says the torture techniques were ineffective and never produced information that could stop imminent terror threats. It even produced much bad information, the report notes, including a fake story about al-Qaeda recruiting African Americans. It says the CIA lied about the covert program to U.S. officials, including the White House. The report's release has scared the living daylights out of the administration of U.S. President Barack Obama. Although the Obama administration says it supports the public release of the report, it had demanded the Senate to reconsider its timing. Last week, Secretary of State John Kerry held talks with Feinstein to convince her not to release a full report now. The administration has claimed that the report can have negative impacts for the U.S. around the world, warning that America's interests could be threatened. The question is why Obama, who has denounced the Bush-authorized harsh interrogation techniques as torture and confessed back in August, quote, "We tortured some folks," unquote, is hard at work to stifle the report.
Our guest for this edition of The Debate, former American intelligence linguist Scott Rickard, joins us from Orlando. And we have President of the American Institute for Foreign Policy, Michael Lane, who joins us from Washington. Gentlemen, welcome. Scott Rickard, waterboarding, stress positions, and other harsh methods in a series of interrogations either at CIA-run secret prisons or Guantanamo Bay, U.S. military base in Cuba. The facts have been out there for a while. There's no doubt about the U.S. torturing suspects. Why are there such worries by this U.S. administration about this report coming out?
Well, I think this report shows some of the details that weren't in initial Red Cross reports or American Civil Liberty Union reports. Some of the details that have come out of this have talked about the torture that led to death, also the torture that led to sexual assault. You also have some torture that was conducted by individuals who were very unqualified. These were merely instructors at an escape and evasion school who started a company and were outsourced to and received over $80 million in revenue from the U.S. government to really do a poor job at not only detaining but interrogating individuals. And this interrogation turned out to be highly unuseful. So it's very sad that the Americans are trying to hide this. Fortunately, there were some senators that had, a truth bone in them, and they have decided to release this information and show that the Americans were at fault conducting crimes around the world against the Geneva Convention, and they are international crimes. So certainly by revealing the fact, and by the way, this is only the tip of the iceberg, but by revealing the fact that the Americans have been operating criminally and probably continue to operate criminally, but not on such a broad scale, there is going to be some individuals who will take note of it, and hopefully no terrorist attacks or no violent retaliation will be taken.
Well, Michael Lane, now when you look at this whole thing, so you have the Senate now, they've released this report, 500 pages, of which a lot of it has actually not been put out in this report. It hasn't been declassified. It's almost as if they're trying to wash their hands of it, because really when it comes down to it, one of the things that is not going to happen, at least up till now, is that nobody's getting prosecuted. Don't you think that there should be a prosecution in place?
Well, let me confirm what you just said, which is that what's been released is a 500-page executive summary of a more than 6,000-page report. So yes, there's a lot in the final report that's going to remain classified that we are not going to know about. I agree that that most of this stuff was out there. Most of it's been known before. Perhaps the degree or the scope of it has been amplified for the world to see, but that there's nothing really startling new in this whole thing. I think what makes it a significant document is the fact that it's all pulled together in one place, and not only pulled together in one place, but as an official report of the United States Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. And that gives it much more significance, credibility, and gravitas than the bits and pieces that have been out there as we go along. As far as the reaction to it and the Obama administration's or the Justice Department's indication that they are not going to pursue any criminal investigation or reopen the criminal investigation at this point. Look, none of this stuff is new to the administration. They knew it all when they conducted their review the first time and decided to close it. So even the breadth and scope and additional details that we get in the Senate report was known to the Justice Department years and years ago, and so there's nothing new here to cause them to change their minds.
Well, what's interesting, Scott Rickard, there's so many things that are interesting here, but one of the things that I found interesting was Dianne Feinstein when she was talking. I don't know if you heard her on the Senate floor, but she said that the CIA, on the CIA actions, that it's a stain on our value and history, describing CIA actions to that effect. At the same time, you have the CIA chief who has said, no, this was okay, this helped U.S.'s national security. You have the Republicans who, for the most part, also back this up. But yet you have a U.S. president who is trying to distance himself, or I should say the U.S., from torture. Does that spell a division within the U.S. administration on this?
Well, not exactly. Both administrations are guilty of criminal activity worldwide. What you have here is individuals who are trying to protect their freedom from being prosecuted for really war crimes that have been committed. You know, unfortunately, war crimes are only prosecuted when a nation loses a war. They're the only people that are prosecuted for war crimes. But if you continue to win the wars, you continue to be able to perpetrate war crimes across the planet. And not only is the Bush administration guilty of war crimes, so is the Obama administration. So a lot of the times you'll see one administration will not take action on the other administration just so there's not retaliation if they lose office, and they'll be taken to criminal court once the Republicans take office and control the presidential office. So no, I believe that they will not take action, unfortunately, and no one will be held accountable for these war crimes and these criminal activities that continue to go on, just in different facets. You know, certainly the activity in Syria has been in the creation of ISIS and these organizations is yet another war crime that's being committed. They're just outsourcing the torture, they're outsourcing the beheadings, they're outsourcing the activity. And so that's what we've run into, is that, you know, these black sites don't exist, but certainly they're not as prolific as they were when they were first created. But at the same time, you also have a very large military-industrial complex and intelligence community that is highly active, that is highly basically untrained and incapable of doing a legitimate and valuable job. And they've committed many crimes, and it's very profitable. And that's the problem that we run into, is that the profitable individuals are buying off the administrations, and the administrations are basically protecting each other.
Michael Lane, do you think torture is continuing today?
Well, you know, torture it's very easy to define it when you see it, but reasonable people can disagree as to whether technique A or technique B is torture or not. I think that the President Obama was very sincere when he signed an executive order ordering an end to waterboarding and other aggressive interrogation techniques. But there's no doubt at all about the fact that rendition is still going on. And so the question becomes, you know, when it's done, not under direct United States control, but under other circumstances, not with our direct knowledge, but our arguably knowledge that we understand what happens when we pursue rendition, is the United States culpable for that? I think the reason that the Obama administration, and indeed rendition started under Bill Clinton, the reason that we have a program like that is so that the United States can wink and nod and say, well, my fingerprints weren't on that.
Well, I'm looking over here at a secret 2004 CIA Inspector General report, Scott Rickard. I wasn't aware of this. And it said that CIA officers went beyond the authorized enhanced interrogation techniques, where in some cases the CIA officers used a power drill, mock executions, and threat against children in efforts to get detainees to provide information. Now the thing is, if you go this far, and maybe things that we don't know about, well, you're going to get some kind of confession under the type of strain that a torture brings, obviously, which is of no use, because ultimately it has said as a conclusion that the reports concluded the enhanced interrogation techniques produced zero actionable intelligence. So after all this, is the U.S. going to learn its lesson?
Well, unfortunately, the U.S. is not going to learn its lesson. When you have individuals that are young, that are brought up into these organizations, you get all types of personalities. I went through training techniques for interrogation and also for different types of torture techniques. And I will tell you that many of the people that conducted the actual training, and also many people that went through the training, have personalities. And some of these individuals are a little more aggressive than others, and some are very meek and don't they aren't capable of even handling the torture that's delivered to them, even though it's in a training environment. So you're dealing with the personalities of individuals, and as individuals are growing up in the American society, seeing all these games that they play, or war games, it's not as it's very simple for the government to outsource these types of type of activities to young individuals. I mean, it really didn't start in the Clinton administration. Rendition has been going on for quite some time. You know, it happened in Vietnam. The Vietnamese were hired to do many horrific things to the North Vietnamese. Same thing in South America and in Central America. And certainly it went on during the Iran-Iraq War, and it also went on during the Afghan War. So there are many types of illegal war crimes that go unreported and unprosecuted. It doesn't matter. I don't think it's going to stop until the American war machine is basically put in check, and the American politicians are basically not bought off by the military-industrial complex and the financial communities that actually control the political environment in the United States, whether it's left or right.
Very well. Let's take a quick time out, listen to some of the viewer comments, and we'll come back to the debate.
The US is bracing for threats from the CIA itself. Use your brains. The US is a threat to itself and to others. They make a mess and graveyards everywhere they go. The CIA is an evil agency. They torture innocent people. No attacks on American soil by a terrorist group since 9/11. Nip them in acid and pig's blood even more. This is not a secret. The whole world knows already, and the report will be watered down anyway. It won't be warts and all. The American administration hasn't suddenly become transparent. So the American government uses terror. They're no better than the people they claim to fight. Hypocrites. I think it's great that they did all this stuff, because now it's blown up in their face.
Okay, some of the viewer comments there. Michael Lane, the U.S., even prior and now, after the report has come out, has warned of imminent threats after this release. Embassies on alert. Senator Feinstein saying that U.S.'s enemies are going to use this to justify violence and attacks. Why would this happen? Is it because, I mean, this information has been out there. Why would the so-called enemies of the United States then pose a threat after the release of this report?
Well, I think that the concern among the administration, the Obama administration, certainly Secretary Kerry and National Security Advisor Susan Rice and some others were very vocal about the fact that they thought that the reworked facts or the reworked information in this report would be seized upon by those who would wish the United States harm. It would be a good recruiting tool for new people to join ISIS or new terrorists to join organizations, Al-Qaeda, et cetera, and to whip them up in a situation where they would be renewed enthusiasm about attacking the United States. That goes back to my opening comment, which is that although none of this is brand new information, the fact that it's all tied together in one document, logically presented, and has the official imprimatur of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence is something that can be used as a recruiting tool for people who would be our enemy. For that reason, the administration did put out a warning to our embassies and other interests overseas that they needed to heighten their security. Senator Feinstein herself acknowledged that this was likely to create security difficulties for United States interests overseas, but nonetheless, her position was that it was more important to be able to get past those security problems that we're creating because the world needed to know what was in her report. Let me revisit, if I could, one thing from just before the break, and that is the single most controversial part of the report was the idea that no single actionable intelligence came out of the program. Certainly the report does conclude that in no uncertain terms. It says that. But people who were involved in the program vigorously dispute that. And for some reason, the Senate committee decided not to interview those people and at least get their statement on why they thought there was actionable intelligence came out. So I think that's not only a controversial item in the report, but a significant weakness in the Senate report as well.
I'm so glad you bring that up. I would think that they would be all over that you would bring these people, you actually show them. You would put them under testimony. This is what happened. This is how this technique actually, yes, saved us some attacks against the U.S. Mainland. Why didn't they do that, Scott Rickard? What do you think?
Well, a lot of times these individuals are not made available by the intelligence community for purposes of protecting the individual's rights as a CIA operative and as a CIA agent. These and as well as contractors. What happens is that some of these individuals are worried about their safety as being prosecuted, as also public safety if their names are mentioned in any kinds of reports. So they redact the names of the individuals from these reports, even the 6,000-page reports. It'll just say a CIA agent or this type of person. So when these interrogations that the other guest is talking about are going on, many individuals actually do not want to be interrogated because they do not want to be included in the report because it's a form of incriminating themselves. And if they've done something wrong, and believe me, I've worked with many of these types of individuals, and they do wrong things, they will be held accountable if an administration ever takes any type of action. The fact is that most administrations won't take action because of what I said earlier, but at the end of the day, this might be a catalyst for people to organize and people to say, hey, wait a second, this is a confirmation, this is official, this is from the Senate. This might be something that we might want to take a look at and maybe put our government in check finally, because they've been operating willy-nilly, not just for the last administration, but probably, for the last 5 to 10 administrations. This is not something that is new to the American government. This is something that has gone on for quite some time. So I think what's really important that we can take away from this is that finally we have a group of individuals who have forced the truth to come out. And believe me, I say forced, it's only a small part of the truth. But when that small part comes out, it is an opportunity for us as a nation and other people around the world to say, look, committing violence isn't going to do anything to fix this. But organizing as individuals, much like the Commonwealth Wars in the 1600s, against these imperialist nations that operate with impunity, that is the only way that we can bring down these imperialist nations that continue to basically manipulate other countries around the world that are doing this over and over again for hundreds of years.
Thank you very much for that. We're going to have to, unfortunately, end in there. That was former American intelligence linguist Scott Rickard from Orlando. And President of the American Institute for Foreign Policy, Michael Lane, spoke to us from Washington. That does for this edition of The Debate. Thanks for tuning in. From me, Kabatawe, and the entire team here in the capital, Tehran. It's goodbye.